Football is one of the most dangerous sports, but it's not just contact between players that results in them getting hurt. It's also contact with the field itself. Lindsay Wright joins us now with more on how teams are managing their fields in order to prevent unwanted injuries.
Yeah, Joe, concussion prevention has been a growing conversation for the last several years. A part of that falls to folks maintaining the football fields. NFL teams are required to follow certain field guidelines, all in an effort to offer players a high-quality, safe place to play. And one collegiate team is following suit. It's about 2 a.m. at Lucas Oil Stadium, and these workers are going to be here all night. They're preparing for the Colts to play at 1. You probably can't tell from the stadium seats or your TV screen at home just how much work goes into making this field look good. And it's about more than that.
But there's a brooming process, there's a grooming process, which is kind of like a rake. There's a spraying process. You spray for like MRSA, stuff like that.
MRSA is a dangerous staph infection that can enter the body through open wounds and cuts. But the workers aren't just disinfecting the field, which is made up of artificial grass fibers that sits on top of layers of sand and rubber. These machines comb through the crumb rubber that's packed deep into the turf field and evenly disperse it. The goal is to make sure the field isn't too hard, but that it's also not too soft. The NFL requires teams to test fields for hardness up to 72 hours before each home game. And this is what the process looks like. They use what's called a Clegg impact tester, which drops a weight onto the field and provides a reading. They repeat the Clegg test in multiple spots on the field.
It could be really good somewhere, and then where there's a lot of traffic, say golf carts and stuff coming in and out, now it could be too hard.
The Clegg test has to measure within a certain range. After testing, Glendinning does a visual inspection of the field. And if he thinks the field looks good, he signs off on it.
Okay, I'm happy.
Glendinning says NFL teams have had to do this for a long time, but the league started to pay more attention to the testing within the last few years. He says the prep work is important.
We had an instance last year that preseason, they painted the logo on some logos on the field, and they painted it too thick. Now we got a problem because a cleat wouldn't even go in it.
Glendinning says multiple NFL officials were on site to ensure it got fixed before the teams played on the field. But he says most of the time there aren't close calls like that because the field crew has the tools to make sure the field is in proper shape. All their work ensures athletes are playing on a level field and are less likely to get an injury like a concussion. It's the reason Indiana University's sports turf management crew is following the NFL's lead. The NCAA doesn't require the testing.
I was actually at a Big Ten facilities meeting a few years back and overheard another Big Ten university talking about how they Clegg test their field before every game to be proactive. And I thought it would be nice on our end to start implementing that.
This year, the group started testing Memorial Stadium's field the day before each game. They want to get a reading under 200.
Not bad, 89.
Treadway says the stadium's field typically tests pretty well, but if it didn't, just like the Colts crew, they have ways to fix it.
You either have to add more crumb rubber, which can kind of help to soften, or you can run machines over it that kind of break it up and relieve that compacted material.
Before, the field was only tested a couple times a year. Treadway says the #1 reason for doing it more often is to make sure players are safe.
On a secondary level, it kind of gives us a gauge of, how our fields are holding up. If we're getting a field that's 6, 7 years old and it's starting to test a lot higher than we would like, then, maybe we have to think about, starting to replace that field.
Treadway says he anticipates the testing requirements will eventually trickle down from the NFL to the collegiate level, and Glendinning agrees.
It should probably trickle down even farther than that, because a lot of these high schools now are getting these fields, and they're not maintained properly.
The numerous hours spent preparing the field for a game may go unrecognized by the fans who will soon pack into these seats. But without a well-taken care of field, your favorite running back or wide receiver could end up on the sidelines.
IU Turf Management is also testing other athletic fields at least a couple times a year. Glendinning says his crew also tests the Colts practice field in addition to the Lucas Oil Field. So, Joe, both of these organizations are going beyond the requirements to make sure things are safe.
It can't be cheap, but you can see how that can be not kind of follow through to all the college teams, too, as some of them want to stay with their real grass fields.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lindsay, thank you very much.
Thanks.